Hello there. I'd like to tell you a story about honesty. Long ago, there was an emperor. Now the emperor lived in a fine palace. He had the finest food, the finest clothes, and kept the finest company. But he had no children, and as he grew older, he began to worry about what would happen when he died. The emperor decided he would hold a competition. All the young men in his kingdom would be invited to take part, and whoever won would become his heir and the next emperor. The young men came from across the land. Princes and noblemen rode to the competition on horseback with their servants, and peasants walked barefoot from the fields, each eager to become the next emperor. Once everybody was in the emperor's garden, he addressed the competitors. Each of you will be given a tiny seed and just 6 weeks. At the end of that time, you will return to this place and show me what you have managed to grow. I will decide from what you bring me who will become my heir and the next emperor. And so off the young men went, back to their homes, the princes to their castles, the peasants to their huts, each determined to make their seed the greatest and most glorious of plants. Amongst them was a gardener. Now the gardener knew everything there was to know about soil, the best conditions for growing plants and what to feed them. He went back to his hut. He made a tiny hole, dropped the seed into it and covered it over with soil. And every day he would water his plants. But every night his dreams were filled with images of rich men with their professional gardeners growing fruit trees and exotic plants. How could a peasant possibly compete with that? 6 weeks passed, and the gardener returned to the palace with his plant. But what do you think he had managed to grow? I know. In a moment, I would like you to pause this video. Find some pens or pencils and a piece of paper and draw the plant or flower you think the gardener will have grown in that time. Perhaps you think he's grown a tree or maybe some sort of beautiful and exotic flower. Whatever you think he grew, I'd like you to pause the video now and draw your picture. Have you drawn a picture? Of course you have. Give yourself a pat on the back. Thank you for joining in with our story. The gardener returned to the emperor's garden. He took with him his little pot, but there was nothing in it. You see, try as he might, he could not make that little seed grow. For 6 long weeks he had moved the pot around the garden. He had given it all kinds of different foods, but it simply would not grow. But being an honest man, he could not lie to the emperor and decided to return with his empty pot and accept his failure. As he stood in the garden waiting for the emperor to decide who had won, he looked at the competition. There were princes smiling smugly with tall palm trees that had bananas and dates at their tops. There were noblemen and rich men holding exotic flowers of all different shapes and sizes and forms. He had brought back an empty pot. He was disappointed with himself. The emperor walked about the garden, a frown upon his face. But as soon as he saw the gardener's empty pot, a smile broke out across his face. "Here is my winner," the emperor declared. The princes and noblemen standing there with their exotic flowers and trees, they were shocked and stunned, as was the gardener. But then the emperor shared his secret. You see, before the seeds had been given to the competitors, they had been baked in an oven. There was no possible way that a fruit tree or an exotic flower could have been grown with a baked seed. He knew as soon as he looked at the gardener's empty pot that only an honest man could become the next emperor. The gardener was taken into the palace. The emperor treated him until the end of his days as if he was his own son. And he went on to become one of the greatest leaders that country had ever known. Give yourself a pat on the back. Take a round of applause. I hope you enjoyed our story. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.